April of 2025, something unusual happened in the precious metals market, something most investors completely ignored. The gold-to-silver ratio quietly climbed above 100 to 1. That meant it took more than 100 ounces of silver to match the value of just 1 ounce of gold. For seasoned metals investors, this wasn't normal. It wasn't even rare. It was extreme. Historically extreme. At that moment, fear dominated markets. Investors rushed toward gold, the traditional safe haven, while silver lagged far behind. On the surface, gold looked strong and silver looked broken, but history was telling a very different story. Fast forward to early 2026, and the picture has changed dramatically. The gold-to-silver ratio has collapsed from over 100 to roughly 57 to 1. Gold delivered an impressive gain during 2025, rising more than 60%. But silver didn't just outperform, it exploded, surging nearly 150%. That kind of move doesn't happen by accident. It happens when market relationships stretch too far and then snap back into balance. This story isn't about predicting prices, it's about understanding relationships. The gold-to-silver ratio is one of the oldest valuation tools in financial history. For thousands of years, gold and silver were not priced independently. Their relationship was controlled, measured, and intentionally balanced. Ancient civilizations fixed this ratio. The Roman Empire used ratios near 15 to 1. Byzantine systems leaned closer to 12 to 1. For centuries, the ratio barely moved. Even in early American history, the ratio was legally enforced. In 1792, the United States established a 15 to 1 ratio through the Coinage Act, anchoring silver's value directly to gold. That stability wasn't driven by markets, it was enforced by policy. That all disappeared in the modern era. When governments abandoned metal-backed currencies and gold was allowed to trade freely in the 1970s, the ratio was released from centuries of control. And once free, it became wildly volatile. Instead of moving between 10 and 15, the ratio began swinging between extremes, collapsing during periods of optimism and exploding during moments of fear. That volatility created something new: opportunity. Because while prices change, human behavior doesn't. Every major spike in the gold-to-silver ratio has followed the same emotional pattern: panic first, correction later. Investors pile into gold for safety, silver gets left behind, and the ratio stretches beyond what history can sustain. And every single time, without exception, it has eventually reversed. Which brings us back to April 2025. Because when the ratio crossed 100 to 1 again, history was quietly repeating itself. And the real question became, was this the warning or the opportunity? In Part 2, we'll break down why extreme ratios almost never last and how smart investors recognize the turning point before the crowd does. To understand why the gold-to-silver ratio matters so much, you have to understand what happens when fear enters the financial system. During times of crisis, investors don't behave rationally, they behave emotionally. Capital rushes toward what feels safest, not what's most undervalued, and historically, that safe place has always been gold. When markets shake, gold absorbs fear. Silver doesn't, at least not immediately. That's why during every major financial shock, the gold-to-silver ratio spikes. In the 2008 financial crisis, the ratio surged close to 90 to 1. During the COVID panic of March 2020, it exploded to levels above 120 to 1, the highest reading in modern history. Each time, headlines screamed uncertainty. Each time, silver was abandoned. And each time, the ratio eventually collapsed. This isn't coincidence, it's behavioral finance playing out in real time. Gold is seen as protection, silver is seen as risk, even though it also functions as money. But silver has a second identity that gold doesn't. It's an industrial metal. That dual role is critical. Once panic fades and economies stabilize, industrial demand reasserts itself. Manufacturing resumes, infrastructure spending returns, energy investment accelerates, and silver suddenly becomes essential again. That's when silver moves, and it moves fast. History makes this painfully clear. In the early 1990s, the gold-to-silver ratio pushed above 100. Over the next several years, as fear eased and growth returned, the ratio collapsed toward 40, driven almost entirely by silver outperforming gold. After the 2008 crisis, the same thing happened. The ratio peaked near 90, then compressed violently. By 2011, silver had surged to nearly $50 an ounce, dragging the ratio down toward 30. The pattern never changed. Extreme fear created extreme ratios. Extreme ratios created extreme opportunity. But here's the part most investors miss. Silver doesn't slowly follow gold, it overshoots. Because silver markets are smaller, thinner, and far more sensitive to capital inflows. When money rotates out of gold and into silver, prices don't gently adjust, they accelerate. That's why silver rallies often look chaotic: sharp spikes, violent pullbacks, explosive upside. And that's exactly why most investors are afraid to buy it when they should. Which brings us to April 2025. When the ratio crossed 100 again, it wasn't just historically elevated, it was statistically stretched, far outside its long-term average, far beyond levels that had ever lasted. The data wasn't whispering, it was screaming. Silver wasn't weak, it was mispriced. And when markets misprice assets for long enough, they don't correct quietly, they snap. So what made 2025 different? Why did silver explode this time instead of drifting sideways? In Part 3, we'll uncover the specific forces that fueled silver's surge and why supply and demand made this reversal unavoidable. Silver didn't surge in 2025 because investors suddenly became optimistic. It surged because the fundamentals left the market no other choice. While fear had pushed the gold-to-silver ratio to extreme levels, the real story was unfolding quietly beneath the surface, in supply chains, factories, and energy infrastructure around the world. Silver isn't just money, it's a critical industrial resource. By 2025, industrial demand for silver had reached record levels. The global transition toward renewable energy continued accelerating, and solar panel production became one of the largest sources of silver consumption worldwide. Each panel requires silver for conductivity, and there is no efficient substitute. At the same time, electric vehicles dramatically increased demand. Modern EVs use significantly more silver than traditional combustion engines, from power electronics to battery systems. As EV adoption expanded, so did silver's industrial footprint. And then there was infrastructure. Electrification, data centers, advanced manufacturing, all of it required silver's unmatched electrical efficiency. Demand wasn't speculative, it was structural. But supply told a very different story. Most investors assume higher prices bring more production. With silver, that assumption breaks down. Unlike gold, most silver isn't mined on its own. It's produced as a byproduct of copper, lead, and zinc mining. That means silver supply doesn't respond quickly to silver prices. Even as demand surged, production remained constrained. Years of underinvestment had left the mining sector unable to scale rapidly. New projects faced long timelines, regulatory pressure, and rising costs. In simple terms, supply was stuck while demand kept climbing. That imbalance had been building for years. The extreme gold-to-silver ratio in April 2025 wasn't just a reflection of fear, it was masking a growing shortage, one that couldn't stay hidden forever. Once investment capital noticed, the reaction was immediate. Silver didn't inch higher, it broke out. As investors rotated out of gold and into undervalued assets, silver absorbed the pressure all at once. Futures markets tightened, physical premiums rose, inventories shrank, and prices surged. By the end of 2025, silver had delivered gains that stunned even seasoned metals investors, outperforming gold by more than 2-to-1. The gold-to-silver ratio collapsed from over 100 to the mid-50s, not because gold failed, but because silver finally repriced to reflect reality. This is what ratio compression looks like, not slow, not gentle, but decisive. And while the biggest move has already happened, the lesson remains critical. Markets don't correct based on opinions, they correct based on pressure. When supply can't meet demand and prices are stretched far beyond historical norms, the outcome isn't optional, it's inevitable. By early 2026, the gold-to-silver ratio had settled near 57-to-1. That number matters, not because it predicts the next price move, but because it tells us where we are in the cycle. The extreme has already corrected. The massive mispricing that existed when the ratio exceeded 100 is gone. Silver is no longer deeply discounted relative to gold. The easy, explosive part of the trade has played out. But that doesn't make the ratio irrelevant. It makes it more useful. The gold-to-silver ratio isn't a timing tool. It doesn't tell you what will happen tomorrow or next week. What it does is help investors understand relative value, whether one asset is historically cheap or expensive compared to another. In April 2025, silver was screaming undervaluation. Today, the message is more nuanced. At current levels, the ratio sits closer to its long-term average, suggesting balance rather than distortion. That means future gains are less likely to come from dramatic reversion and more likely to depend on broader economic forces. This is where many investors make mistakes. They assume opportunity only exists at extremes. In reality, opportunity evolves. Gold continues to serve its primary role, protection. Central bank demand remains strong. Global debt levels are still rising. Geopolitical risk hasn't disappeared. It's become structural. Gold doesn't need explosive upside to be valuable. Its job is to preserve purchasing power when confidence in financial systems weakens. Silver plays a different role. Even after its surge, silver remains exposed to industrial growth, technological expansion, and infrastructure investment. That means it carries more volatility, but also more upside potential during periods of economic acceleration. The key lesson from 2025 isn't buy silver at any price. The lesson is discipline. Extreme ratios demand action. Neutral ratios demand patience. Investors who succeeded didn't chase headlines or momentum. They acted when data, history, and valuation aligned, even when sentiment was negative. And just as importantly, they understood when conditions changed. The gold-to-silver ratio teaches timing through restraint as much as action. It helps investors avoid emotional decisions, buying too late, selling too early, or holding the wrong balance for the environment. Because markets don't reward urgency, they reward preparation. So how do investors actually apply this lesson moving forward? How can the gold-to-silver ratio be used as a decision-making framework, not a prediction? In Part 5, we'll pull everything together and reveal the single biggest takeaway every precious metals investor should remember heading into the future. The gold-to-silver ratio doesn't tell the future. What it does is reveal imbalance, and that's its real power. In 2025, the ratio exposed one of the most distorted relationships in modern precious metals history. Silver wasn't just cheap, it was historically mispriced relative to gold. Investors who understood that didn't need perfect timing, they needed conviction. And patience. Because ratio-based investing isn't about catching tops or bottoms. It's about recognizing when markets drift too far from reality and positioning before the correction becomes obvious. That's exactly what happened. As fear faded and fundamentals took over, silver repriced violently. The ratio compressed, the opportunity matured, and the market moved on. This cycle leaves behind an important lesson for every investor. You don't need to predict prices to succeed. You need to understand relationships. Gold and silver are connected, not emotionally, not politically, but mathematically and historically. When that relationship stretches beyond what history can support, it creates opportunity. When it normalizes, it signals restraint. That framework applies far beyond precious metals. Ratios exist everywhere in markets: equities versus bonds, growth versus value, risk versus safety. The investors who win over time aren't guessing where prices go next, they're watching for distortion. They act when data contradicts sentiment. They wait when emotion replaces logic. As we move deeper into 2026 and beyond, the gold-to-silver ratio may remain calm, or it may stretch again. Another crisis will come, another extreme will appear. History guarantees that. The only question is whether investors will recognize it when it does. Because opportunity rarely announces itself with confidence. It arrives quietly, disguised as discomfort, uncertainty, and doubt. And by the time it feels obvious, it's usually gone.